You every night, Carl Jung warned about this. You came here seeking confirmation that they will return, that patience will be rewarded, that your waiting has purpose and meaning. But the universe, in its infinite compassion, sends you a different message tonight, one that your soul has been whispering for months while your heart refused to listen. This is not the prophecy of reunion you expected. This is something far more sacred, permission to be free. There exists a spiritual crossroad where hope becomes a prison and faith becomes a chain that binds you to a reality that no longer serves your highest evolution. You stand at that crossroad now, and the path forward requires not more waiting, but the courage to release what you have held so tightly that your hands have gone numb from the gripping. The person you think about every night, the one who occupies the space between your waking thoughts and your dreams, was never meant to be your destination. They were meant to be your awakening. This message will challenge everything you have convinced yourself to believe, every rationalization you have constructed to justify the continued investment of your precious energy into a connection that takes far more than it gives. But if you have found your way to these words, your soul has called you here for a reason that transcends your conscious understanding. You are ready, even if you do not feel ready. You are prepared, even if you feel completely unprepared. The universe does not make mistakes in its timing. What you are about to receive is not cruelty. It is clarity, not rejection. Recognition of a lesson completed, a chapter concluded, a teacher whose curriculum in your life has reached its natural ending. Some souls enter our existence not to stay forever, but to catalyze the transformation that prepares us for everything that comes after. Write, "I am ready to hear truth," in the comments if you can handle what comes next. Only those with genuine courage will speak these words aloud, because they signal to the universe that you are prepared to exchange comfortable illusions for uncomfortable liberation. The collective consciousness has taught you to categorize every intense connection as destiny, every powerful attraction as proof of eternal partnership, every person who awakens your dormant emotions as evidence of soulmate recognition. But Carl Jung understood what modern spirituality often forgets. Not every significant encounter is designed for permanence, and intensity should never be confused with longevity or compatibility with completion. There exists a category of relationship that transcends the binary of soulmate or stranger, a sacred designation reserved for those who enter your life with explosive force, shake every foundation you have built, expose every wound you have hidden, and then depart just as suddenly as they arrived. These are the soul teachers, disguised as romantic possibilities, wrapped in the packaging of potential partnership. They seduce you not with false promises but with the authentic mirror they hold up to your unexamined patterns, your unconscious choices, your inherited wounds. This person was never your destination, though the intensity of the connection convinced you otherwise for months or perhaps years. They were the earthquake, not the foundation, the catalyst, not the completion, the question that forced you to find answers within yourself rather than the answer you sought outside yourself. Every moment of confusion they created was actually an invitation to clarity. Every instance of inconsistency was actually revealing your own pattern of accepting inconsistency. Every time they failed to meet your needs, they were teaching you to stop abandoning your own needs for someone else's comfort. The universe operates through a principle that sounds cruel until you understand its deeper mercy. Some people are placed in your path specifically to show you what you will no longer tolerate, what you have outgrown, what you must release in order to evolve. They are not villains in your story. They are essential characters whose role was always temporary, whose purpose was always pedagogical rather than romantic. The pain you feel is not evidence that something went wrong. It is evidence that the lesson went deep enough to create permanent transformation. You have been loving a teacher while waiting for them to become a partner, projecting the role of soulmate onto someone whose sole contract with you was always about teaching, never about staying. The sooner you accept this truth, the sooner you can honor what they gave you while releasing what they cannot give you. Look beyond the pain for a moment and witness the transformation that occurred within you because of this connection, not in spite of it. Every relationship that breaks us also remakes us, reshaping the internal architecture of our self-concept, our boundaries, our understanding of what we deserve and what we will no longer accept. This person, through their presence and their absence, their promises and their failures, their moments of tenderness and their patterns of withdrawal, delivered a curriculum specifically designed for your evolution. They showed you your strength by testing it repeatedly, by creating situations where you had to choose between your dignity and your desire, where you had to decide if you would compromise your core values for the possibility of their affection. Every time you felt small in their presence, you were learning to recognize the relationships where you diminish yourself. Every time you overextended yourself to meet their inconsistent energy, you were learning where your boundaries had holes that needed reinforcing. Every time you accepted less than you deserved, you were gathering evidence for the case you would eventually build for your own liberation. They taught you boundaries by crossing them with such frequency that you could no longer ignore the pattern, could no longer rationalize their behavior as misunderstanding or mistake. The violations were precise enough to force you into a confrontation with your own complicity in accepting treatment that contradicted your stated standards. They revealed your worth by undervaluing it so consistently that you finally began to question why you kept returning to someone who could not see what others see so clearly in you. This person was a mirror held at an angle that showed you not your beauty but your blind spots, not your strengths but the places where childhood wounds still dictated adult choices. They reflected back every unhealed pattern from your past, every dynamic you swore you would never repeat but somehow found yourself repeating with different characters in different contexts. The father who was emotionally unavailable, the mother who gave love conditionally. The first heartbreak that taught you to earn affection rather than expect it freely. The spiritual curriculum they delivered was brutal in its honesty and perfect in its precision, showing you exactly where your inner work remained incomplete, exactly which stories you still believed about yourself that no longer served your highest becoming. The gift was never their presence. The gift was always the clarity their absence would eventually force you to claim. You have been so focused on what you lost that you have not yet fully recognized what you gained. Yourself, returned to you, wiser and less willing to abandon your own needs for someone else's comfort. There comes a moment of reckoning in every prolonged waiting when you must distinguish between someone who will not meet your needs and someone who cannot meet your needs, and the distinction matters more than you realize. Will not suggests temporary resistance, a choice that might change with enough patience, enough love, enough evidence of your devotion. Cannot reveals a fundamental incompatibility between their current capacity and your legitimate requirements, a gap that no amount of hoping will bridge because the issue is not willingness but capability. This person cannot be what you need them to be, not because they are fundamentally flawed or deliberately cruel, but because they exist at a different stage of emotional development, operating from a different level of self-awareness, functioning within a different paradigm of what relationship means and what intimacy requires. It is not that they refuse to meet you where you stand. It is that they cannot perceive where you stand, cannot access the emotional range necessary to understand what you need, cannot provide consistency because they have not yet developed internal consistency. You have been waiting for them to evolve into someone they may never become, at least not in a time frame that serves your life, projecting onto them a potential that exists more vividly in your imagination than in their demonstrated behavior patterns. Carl Jung taught that we cannot individuate through another person, that the work of becoming whole is internal and cannot be outsourced to a relationship. They must choose their own evolution. You cannot love someone into a transformation they do not actively pursue for themselves. The painful truth that liberates you from endless waiting is this: some people are not equipped for your level of depth, your capacity for emotional intimacy, your standard of consistent presence and authentic vulnerability. Not because you are superior, but because you are simply different, operating from different values, seeking different outcomes, ready for different levels of commitment and emotional risk. The relationship was always unbalanced because you brought different levels of readiness, different degrees of healing, different capacities for the kind of connection you both claim to want. You have outgrown this dynamic even if you have not yet physically left it, expanded beyond what this connection can hold, evolved past what this person can offer. Staying now is not loyalty, it is self-abandonment. Waiting longer is not faith, it is fear disguised as patience. You fell in love not with the person standing before you in their full reality, but with the shimmering possibility of who they could become if only the circumstances aligned, if only they healed their wounds, if only they recognized what you see so clearly in them. This is the most seductive trap in human relationship. The worship of potential rather than the acceptance of reality, the investment in a future version that may never materialize, while the present version continues to disappoint and withdraw and fail to show up consistently. Potential is a cruel god that demands endless sacrifice without promising any return, that asks you to ignore what is happening today in favor of what might happen tomorrow, that convinces you to pour your precious energy into a foundation that may never solidify beneath your feet. You have been in relationship with their potential for so long that you have forgotten to assess their actuality, their demonstrated patterns over time, their choices when faced with discomfort or required growth, or the option to remain in their familiar patterns. The version of them you love exists primarily in moments of possibility, in glimpses of who they could be, in brief windows when they showed up fully before retreating back into their comfortable patterns of emotional unavailability or inconsistency or self-protection. But a relationship cannot be built on glimpses and moments. It requires sustained presence, demonstrated commitment, consistent follow-through on stated intentions. You cannot love someone into an evolution they do not choose for themselves through their own inner work and conscious decision-making. Subscribe if you are ready to stop waiting for potential and start honoring reality, if you are prepared to release the fantasy in favor of what actually exists, if you can finally admit that your vision of who they could become has kept you trapped in tolerating who they currently are. The subscription is not to this channel, but to a new way of engaging with relationship that honors demonstrated behavior over promised intention, that values consistency over intensity, that chooses presence over potential. Every day you remain invested in someone's potential is a day you are not available for someone who has already done the work, who already shows up consistently, who already values what you bring without needing to be convinced of your worth. The universe cannot deliver your true match while you remain energetically bound to someone who occupies the space without filling it. There exists an opportunity cost to every choice you make, every investment of time and energy and emotional resources, every day you commit to a situation that does not reciprocate your commitment with equal intensity and demonstrated care. What you choose to hold on to determines what you cannot reach for. What you refuse to release blocks what is trying to reach you. Your continued presence in this unfulfilling dynamic is not neutral. It carries a price that increases with each passing month. Every day you wait for this person to become ready is a day you do not meet your true match, the one who would recognize your value immediately rather than requiring years of proof, who would choose you consistently rather than sporadically, who would match your energy rather than leaving you chronically depleted from the effort of maintaining a connection that should flow naturally. Someone is searching for exactly what you offer, blocked from finding you because you remain unavailable, still invested in convincing someone else of your worth instead of seeking someone who never requires convincing. The energy drain of an unfulfilled connection is not abstract or metaphorical. It manifests in exhaustion that has no physical cause, in anxiety that spikes every time your phone delivers a notification, in the mental bandwidth consumed by analyzing their behavior and decoding their mixed signals, and trying to understand what you did wrong when the truth is you did nothing wrong except stay too long after recognizing the pattern. You are hemorrhaging life force into a situation that gives back only confusion and intermittent reinforcement, and the perpetual promise of future change. But the deepest cost is not the time or energy. It is the self-betrayal inherent in accepting less than you deserve while knowing you deserve more, in compromising your stated boundaries while watching yourself compromise them, in tolerating behavior you would never accept from anyone else simply because you have invested so much already, and walking away would require admitting that the investment will not yield the return you hoped for. Every day you stay in contradiction to your own knowing, you fracture your relationship with yourself, teaching yourself that your needs are negotiable, that your boundaries are suggestions. Your worth is debatable. This is the true cost, not what you lose from them, but what you lose of yourself in the process of waiting for them to choose you. The spiritual traditions have taught surrender and patience and faith, but they have often failed to clarify that surrender sometimes means releasing what you have clung to. That patience is not the same as indefinite waiting. That faith includes trusting yourself enough to walk away from what diminishes you. Walking away is not giving up. It is the ultimate act of giving to yourself, honoring your inherent worth enough to remove yourself from situations that contradict it, choosing your own peace over someone else's potential. The universe operates through energetic laws that appear paradoxical until you understand their deeper logic. What you desperately cling to cannot leave, cannot transform, cannot return to you in a healthier form because your clinging creates an energetic grip that prevents natural movement and evolution. What you release with genuine surrender enters the realm of possibility, free to return transformed or not return at all. And both outcomes become blessings because you have reclaimed your power and your peace in the act of releasing. The universe has been trying to clear the path before you, removing obstacles and closing doors and creating circumstances that would make the right choice obvious. But you have been fighting the current, insisting on swimming upstream, interpreting every closed door as a test of your persistence rather than as divine redirection toward something that aligns more fully with your highest good. Every time you have felt the intuitive pull to walk away and then talked yourself back into staying, you have chosen fear over faith, chosen the familiar over the unknown, chosen the devil you know over the blessing you cannot yet see. You must release the wrong one to energetically call in the right one, must create space in your life and heart and daily routine for what is trying to enter but cannot push past the energetic clutter of an almost relationship that refuses to commit or depart. The person meant for you cannot arrive while you remain bound to someone who only partially wants you, who keeps you in perpetual uncertainty, who offers just enough to keep you hoping but never enough to build anything stable. The spiritual meaning of walking away is not failure but graduation, not loss but liberation, not giving up but finally giving yourself what you have been giving everyone else. Priority, consideration, unwavering commitment to your own well-being and peace and joy. This is the spiritual practice that matters most. Choosing yourself even when it feels selfish, honoring your truth even when others do not understand it, trusting that the universe rewards those brave enough to release what no longer serves them with something infinitely better aligned with who they have become. The moment you truly release this person, not with bitterness or resentment, but with genuine neutrality and gratitude for the lessons delivered, everything in your energetic field shifts and reorganizes around your new decision. The chronic anxiety that has haunted you for months begins to dissipate, replaced gradually by a peace you had almost forgotten was possible. The mental space previously consumed by analyzing their behavior becomes available for creativity, for presence, for attention to your own dreams and goals and relationships that actually reciprocate your care. You will notice synchronicities beginning to appear with increasing frequency, as if the universe is confirming that you made the aligned choice, sending signs and symbols and opportunities that were blocked while you remained entangled with someone operating at a different frequency. Doors that were previously closed will open effortlessly. People who resonate with your current vibration will appear seemingly out of nowhere. Opportunities that match your gifts will present themselves without you having to force or chase or convince. The space creation that occurs when you release what does not serve you is not empty or lonely despite your fears. It is fertile and charged with potential, a cleared field ready for new planting, an open channel through which blessings can flow without obstruction. What is meant for you will reach you once you stop blocking its arrival with your attachment to what is not meant for you. The universe abhors a vacuum and will rush to fill the space you have created with something that matches your new level of self-respect and boundaries. They might return, transformed by your absence into someone finally capable of meeting you where you stand, finally awakened to what they lost, finally ready to do the work they previously avoided. Or they will not return, and you will discover with surprise and relief that you no longer want them to, that you have moved so far beyond who you were when you needed them that their return would feel like regression rather than reunion. Share this message if you are choosing yourself today, if you are walking away from potential in favor of peace, if you are finally ready to trust that what is meant for you will not require years of convincing and waiting and self-betrayal. Your share is not just engagement. It is a declaration to the universe of your readiness. You have been waiting for them to provide closure, to offer the apology that explains their behavior, to give you the conversation that ties everything into a neat conclusion, so you can finally move forward without questions or confusion or lingering what-ifs. But closure is not something another person grants you. It is something you claim for yourself through the simple but profound act of deciding that the story is complete regardless of how they choose to participate in its ending. You do not need their apology to forgive them or release them or move forward with your life. Their apology would not change what happened, would not erase the months of confusion and inconsistency, would not undo the moments when they chose their comfort over your dignity. The apology you truly need is the one you give yourself for staying longer than your intuition advised, for ignoring the red flags your body registered even when your mind created explanations, for believing their words instead of their demonstrated patterns. You do not need them to understand your perspective, to acknowledge how their behavior affected you, to validate your experience of pain or confusion or betrayal. Their understanding or lack of understanding does not determine the validity of your reality. Your experience stands on its own merit, requires no external confirmation, exists independent of whether they can perceive or admit what they created. Seeking their validation is giving them power they should not hold over your peace. You need only your own permission to close this chapter and begin the next, to decide that you have learned what this connection came to teach, to acknowledge that some questions will remain forever unanswered, and that you can live fully and joyfully despite the ambiguity. Closure is an internal process, a decision you make within yourself that this story has reached its natural ending regardless of how unsatisfying that ending might feel from your current vantage point. The power has always been yours, not the power to make them choose you, to force them into consistency, to convince them of your value. The power to choose yourself, to honor your own boundaries, to walk away from what diminishes you even when part of you still wants to stay. This is the only power that matters, the only power no one can take from you, the power that transforms you from victim of circumstance into author of your own liberation and architect of your next chapter. 6 months from now, a year from now, perhaps sooner than you can currently imagine, you will look back on this moment as the turning point, the hinge upon which your entire life pivoted from diminishment to expansion, from settling to claiming what you truly deserve. The person you are becoming through this release is someone you will barely recognize, someone who carries herself differently, who speaks her needs without apology, who walks away at the first sign of inconsistency rather than giving chance after chance to people who demonstrate through their choices that they are not ready for what she offers. Someone is coming who will not make you question their interest or decode their mixed signals, or wonder if you are asking for too much when you request basic consistency and respect. They will choose you clearly and repeatedly, will match your energy without you having to dim your light to make them comfortable, will recognize your value immediately because they have done their own healing work, and can therefore perceive and appreciate depth when they encounter it. This pain you feel now was the preparation for recognizing them when they arrive, for appreciating ease after you have known struggle, for valuing consistency after you have survived chaos. Everything that has happened to you, every heartbreak and disappointment and moment when you felt unseen or undervalued, was calibrating your internal compass, teaching you to recognize what genuine partnership feels like versus what performing for crumbs feels like. You were never meant to stay in that dynamic. You were only meant to learn from it. Thank this person silently for the lesson they delivered through their presence and their absence, for showing you what you will no longer accept, for freeing you through their inability to meet you. Send them gratitude without attachment, bless them without needing them, release them fully into their own journey. Then walk forward without looking back, trusting that every step away from what was not meant for you is a step toward what has been waiting patiently for you to become ready to receive it. Your real love story is just beginning, and it starts with you finally choosing yourself.